Hello, everyone. Everyone meaning Hugh and a bureaucrat.
And
Welcome
fans.
back to another episode of Pen is Envy. My name is Carter. We got Abby, Ursula, and Faith. Abby, what are we doing today?
All right. For this week's episode, we watched the film The Radiant Child, and it's about Jean-Michel Basquiat. Is that how you say his last name? Yeah, I don't speak Basquiat.
Survey says
I don't speak French. So we watched that movie about his life, and Basquiat was a prominent street artist, and then later turned painter, or like very highly esteemed painter in the art world. And we just watched the documentary about his life. And today we're going to be discussing some of his paintings and some semiotics behind them.
Yeah, it was really cool to look at his creative process because he was so uninhibited and authentic. And I think that's what a lot of artists strive for. But then the way his art was kind of commodified and the way he made it really big at a really young age kind of ruined his perception on art. And even though in a lot of ways he still continued with his process of just frantically painting every possible chance he got, the fact that his art was being sold for millions and millions of dollars a piece got to him really deeply, and he ended up dying really young.
Yeah, and the press really got to him too. Poor guy.
Yeah.
It was very tragic to watch.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, haha.
Um,
It was actually really sad.
yeah,
You're rooting for him, you know?
especially because he was what,
27.
20, yeah. That's
And you
not
just watched
that
him,
much older than
go from
us.
this happy old
Yeah.
little artist to you just watch his mental state decline.
But imagine if we just started graffitiing poems on the side of the road and then we ended up being some famous artist later.
We could do it.
His art so good is his sense of composition, and he just knows how to fill space, and he doesn't really I think he doesn't think about it too hard. He kind of just I mean, I'm not one to talk, I'm not deep inside of his head, but he just it seems like he just puts down what he feels needs to be down, not really a planned pencil sketch or whatever. He just goes right in with the paint on a door or something like that.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Oh, the I word. I know. Ding ding.
Right off the
video
bat.
and this one. Okay, guys. Okay. But I did think it was how we didn't get much into his creative process, and I guess maybe part of it is that it wasn't very external, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He just went for it.
Yeah, I think that is also sort of built off the fact that he started out as more of he did graffiti, obviously, which is a form of art, but rather than sort of the visual art you would imagine with graffiti, it was more just like Ursula said, it was just words and poetry, I guess you could say. And I think that is part of where that came from, in a sense.
Should we pull up the paintings each one of us have selected?
Yeah,
sure.
This is the one I chose. It's called Eyes and Eggs, painted by Basquiat himself, of course, in 1983.
So, Carter, why did you feel attracted to this specific piece of art? What draws you in?
I think, as someone who works in food service, this kind of stood out to me. Eyes and eggs. It seems like he's trying to do something. The eyes are kind of daunting, and I want to say that maybe the idea is that the eyeballs are on the pan. I also love anything that points out the shortcomings or how awful capitalism is. I feel the tiredness of the face and just the way it's drawn kind of points itself to that. So
I just wanted to point out that the person's mouth is like scratched out, and the person obviously works in food service, and it's kind of like capitalism, or like the industry that he works in takes away like one's voice almost, because the customer's always right. And there was also that part in the film where Basquiat tried to go to work. He started an apprenticeship or something as an electrician, and he came back crying like he couldn't do it because he just felt like the woman was talking down to him, like the person he was like installing the electrical work on or whatever.
I was thinking about that, like how I think he specifically said that like he was being treated like a slave or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I think that's interesting coming from like a kid who grew up in like a middle class family, ran away a lot, and then started graffitiing like walls and stuff. He never really held a job. Like he was just driven by his mind. And that's like a good thing and a bad thing. Like I'm not really judging or anything. But it's interesting that he has this commentary on it when he was never really part of that world, except for literally one day.
Right? No, that's what I was wondering. The film didn't say anything about his life before he was 18, 19 when he ran away from home. So I'm curious what corner of his mind this came from.
Yeah, because like the documentary did say like, oh, even before that time where he like officially ran away, he would run away a lot. So that sort of gives me an impression that like, I feel like if you're constantly running away from home, you probably don't have a job. Like I feel like that's kind of a difficult thing to keep up if you're not at home. So it's kind of maybe not likely, but I wouldn't be surprised if he had never actually had like a job in the sense of like in regards to this painting, you know?
He did say in the film though that he draws inspiration from things, like he has the TV on, magazines, whatever. So I don't know. I guess
coming back to that, actually, his name is Joe, and it kind of reminds me of the phrase not your average Joe. Joe is just like a generic name for like an average person. So this is him depicting like the average person in America working a minimum wage job, no voice.
That's funky because I was thinking cup of joe, like coffee, and it like breakfast food, but maybe that's totally off the mark.
I think it could be both.
They can go hand in hand.
Cup of joe.
Also, I feel like, okay, two things. First, I think that you kind of see not the same image, but a similar image sort of mirrored, because you have like Joe, and then also the eggs, there's two yolks, so it kind of looks like eyes and eggs, you know? And then also the fact that he's in front of the like little dashes, the lines, kind of reminds me of what's it called? When you go to jail and you do the headshot in front of the height thing.
Wait,
it just makes me think of that.
I did not even see that.
Damn, faith your mind.
Holy wow.
That's really cool.
So it kind of makes me not to hate on capitalism, as per every
what do you mean
episode.
not to hate on capitalism?
Sorry to keep going back to the same thing every time, but like it does sort of, I feel like as someone who's had jobs sorry
someone who's had a job,
but like it does kind of really suck, and you feel so separated from your real life, and like that happens also with forced labor in prisons, especially in the US. Like it's a whole thing. And so there's sort of that link between, you know, menial jobs and also menial work in prison, and then also Black men in prison in America. It's a whole thing.
Using our making our breakfast food using prison labor.
Yay, Sodexo. We love Sodexo.
In that case, it's really ironic that he has a name tag because of the way like this type of labor alienates you on such a deep level, and it's like this is you, like this is how you present yourself with the letters that your parents gave you to call yourself, like literally when you were born, but that's not even you, that's just like your working persona, and it's like this forced connection that isn't really there. Right. And as an artist, like Basquiat just doesn't experience that because like everyone hears his name and thinks of like this specific, such like a unique style.
Right. And it goes back to the double, triple meanings of the choosing Joe as the name on there. You know, it's like not just Joe is a pretty generic name. Like in math class, they'll be like, Joe bought 40 melons. You know, it's just like Joe.
Joe.
And maybe Basquiat is like, I can never be this.
This
He
average
sees right
Joe.
through it. I have the song Joe by the Cranberries playing in my head right now.
Oh my god.
Right.
On that note, next painting?
Next painting?
Yeah.
Go for
All right.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, I picked this one out. It's untitled, but I just thought it was very dynamic, and there was a lot of juxtaposition between like bodies and machines, past, present, future. I'm not entirely sure what it means, but something I really like about his art is how he adds words to it that don't really connect. So it adds, like, it gives you another sense of depth. And it kind of relates to his street art that he did before.
Man, anyone want to dig in?
Need to take a minute to take this all in.
Yeah.
The part with the cat, I don't know if I can point to it. Underneath
I see
bottom
the
left,
cat.
bottom right.
industrial, it kind of reminds me of Da Vinci almost, like with his Vitruvian
Oh.
Man.
Oh my god, I was thinking that when I was looking at it.
Yeah. And he did copy, or not copy, like take inspiration from like all these older artists.
Yeah, I do find it interesting how, like, sort of as you go from the bottom left corner to the top right corner, it's sort of almost passing through time. Because I guess even like sort of left to right, bottom to top is how it goes. Because you have like, so top left, you have like Aboriginal generative, and then at the left bottom, you see like sun god and trickster and great hair. And that sort of reminds me of a lot of like Aboriginal native like ideas of like worship sort of. And then for like the top right you have a car, and you have, it says global industrial in front of above the cat Vitruvian Man thing, so it's sort of like a shift. I find it intriguing.
Kind of intriguing.
Yeah. This might just be me talking out of my ass, but have you guys, okay. okay. You know the part where it shows like all the people like with the boobs and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
It kind of reminds me and stuff. It kind of reminds me of those like infographic pictures that they show us like at the beginning of like the like gender inclusion stuff that we did at the beginning of the year, where it's like gender, sex, blah 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 blah, where it's like female in your arm, like whatever.
Wait,
it kind of
You're
reminds
saying
me of
like
that.
gender identity, like in
Gender
your
identity,
head, but
yeah.
the
It reminds me
expression
of one of those gender identity things, like how it's the person on the left is like half red, the person in the middle is like red only on the top of their head, the person on the other end is like red in the head, and then like their genitals are scratched out. It kind of reminds me of that. That's just me talking out.
Oh, I thought that they were pubes.
Maybe.
Who knows? Either way, it's kind of ambiguous almost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Does anyone know what in the middle, slightly to the left, looks like what was the base layer? Can anyone make out what that is?
I cannot.
The words on the beige part that connect to the Aboriginal generative giving birth.
Is it this part right here?
Yeah.
While you're looking at that, I feel like I want to add on to what Abby was saying with the three figures. Like, it's sort of, I agree that it's very ambiguous, and like it almost, to me, like obviously when you first look at it, it's like, oh, those are all boobs, but I don't know if that is necessarily true, because I have seen some people with some pretty big pecs. Like, it's a thing. They can get large, and it's sort of, it sort of, to me, seems almost like as if there's like a man on the left, a woman on the right, and then a non-binary person in the middle. I don't know if that is just what I'm reading into it, but that's sort of the impression I get. Because
The
also like
shapes
the
of the
actual
bodies.
the figure of the body, you have the stereotypical like, oh, a man is a rectangle, a woman is an hourglass. There's no in between. Like, and it's sort of like there is an in between. Like you've got very stereotypical of one and of the other, and then in the middle you've got like one side it goes in the waist, and the other side it's still straight.
Wow, that is.
I don't know.
That's
What
exactly
if
what.
art isn't meant to be analyzed like that though? Like what if he didn't have these meanings for like each figure? What if he just wanted it to be a piece as a whole instead of like a bunch of separate parts?
Mm.
Like I don't
Well,
know.
we could talk about what this piece connotes.
I think, yeah, yes. Also, I feel like with art, I think art is just kind of what you take from it. Like, I feel like, yes, there might be what the author intends, and that can definitely come through because you can always sort of like their intention and beliefs will always come through, but also part of it is just sort of what you can get from it. And then does it really matter? Yes, but also no, is my take on it.
A really big part of making art is just having fun, and like I'm sure he was having fun making these. If he was listening to records and watching TV at the same time and painting, like that's kind of my dream life.
Yeah, living the dream.
Yeah, and he said he just lives inside his head. Like he was just going for it.
He was just like painting everything that came to mind, I guess. Like how when you imagine things in your mind, everything is like kind of scattered and jumbled together. That's like what his paintings were.
And he had said, or somebody, oh shoot, I don't remember his name, but he said that if he said, "Oh, I like it," he'd be like, "Oh, well, you like anything." But if he brought up the slightest little critique, Basquiat would be like, "Shut the fuck up! You don't know. Everything I do is intentional and perfect. Like you don't understand." So in some ways, I feel like this this what are we doing right now? The four of us.
Just having fun, having a good time.
Use assignment, I guess.
Like
Yeah.
something really unique about his art is like I'd mentioned this before, but the reason why it's so good is just the composition of it and the way everything's compiled together. But if you had like one element of that on a blank piece of paper, like in crayon, it would look totally different. Like it would be something like a kid would draw. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so captivating. Like, and also why a bunch of museums rejected his art at first. Like they saw him as this like just kind of like street artist from NYC trying to make a living, which is what he was. But then like, why does that put him anywhere below like these other fine artists or like minimalist people?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that with street art, like not every street artist is Black. Like that's objectively not true. But street art and like graffiti specifically is very much like thought of as a Black art form, and like the as an art form it's sort of like mostly composed of Black artists, and so there's always going to be that little bit of racism where it's like, oh, that's not real art. And maybe it's like, I don't think that people are intentionally being racist. I would hope not. It's still there. But yeah, it is interesting um, about how Basquiat, like when he was super famous when he was alive, but like that only grew after his death. And like I went to the Boston Museum of Fine Arts a couple of weeks ago, and they had a Basquiat exhibit, and I went and saw it, and it had his name on it. It was more just like street art. Like there was some Keith Haring stuff, other artists, but like that, I don't think that would have been a huge thing when he was alive. Like, I don't know, just like the after death artists get all of this attention because now they aren't making anymore. It's sort of like, oh, no one saw that he was great, but people did see that he was great. It was just you.
He also just made so much art, like so much art.
Yeah.
All right. Any other So should we move on?
I think we can go on.
Move on.
I wonder why it's untitled.
A lot of his pieces were untitled, I
Maybe
think.
It's so easy to just come up with titles, though. I feel like.
my guess is part of it is when you title it. I don't know. Maybe it's something about how he wanted his artwork to be perceived, and so if he was like three figures, or if he said cat, or then the way we looked at this would be different. Whereas when it's untitled, it's just whatever the fuck comes out.
Yeah.
Just wanted to leave it up to your imagination. Okay, move on.
Okay, so this is the piece that I picked. It's called Boy and Dog in a Johnny Pump. It's from 1982. To clarify, a Johnny Pump is essentially just like a fire hydrant, just a different name for it. I picked this one. I really enjoy his use of color. Like in all of his works, I feel like I don't know, I just like when things are colorful, and he does that, and it's always nice to look at. And the way that he like splashes color and mixes it, it always makes me, I enjoy seeing it. But especially in this one, like you have all of the color from the background. It's very warm painting, but also the way that the figure is black with like almost a white skeleton, or like a white, I don't know, not outline, but just like lines of white over it. And it's just I like looking at it.
I think part of what I love about this painting, at least, is these bold, bright colors, and especially together, are things that you'd usually see in things geared for children. And I know like people can and will and have compared Basquiat's painting to like a 5-year-old, but I think what makes it Basquiat is kind of this aspect of, I don't know, not doom, but darkness and scariness and evil, you know? That like the dog is kind of scary, and so is the face, and it's deformed. It's a deformed human body, and that against these beautiful bright colors is really
Yeah, I agree. Especially with the sort of like skeletal appearance of the figure, of the boy. Like you've got, I mean, that's how he does most of his faces, is with the mouth like that, but it still does look like a skull. Like it still reminds you of a skeleton, even if that's not the intention.
I kind of like the contradiction of painting like a child and his dog as skeletons, because it's supposed to display like the joy of youth, but also like depicting it as skeletons.
Imminent death.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question for you guys. It's about fire hydrants or Johnny pumps, whatever you want to call them. I think I'm gonna start using the word Johnny pump because
I kind of like it.
who's ever
Yeah.
heard that before? Like I haven't heard that before, Basquiat. But like, I guess the semiotics, to use the technical term, of a fire hydrant. Do you like connote water or fire? Because if they're full of water, they're usually bright red, but this, like the orange and the yellow in this painting, it looks like something's burning.
I think that's fair. When I think of them, I don't know if this is because I was looking at these painting and it made me think of it. So take this with a grain of salt. But I think mostly of water because although I've never done it, I don't think I've known anyone who's done it. There's like sort of the image in my mind of kids who would like turn on the fire hydrant or like break it or something and then like play in the water.
When the
Do you
sprinkler.
know what I'm talking about? You know, like that sort of thing. And that is what this feels like to me. Like it almost seems like at the boy's like right leg, like there's sort of like an upward motion to the paint in the background of the color, and it reminds me of that, of like the water spraying upward.
Faith, what you just said reminds me of like anything in this country. I'm pretty sure firefighters and things have a racist what's the word? I don't know. There's racism, and I've seen
There's
images.
racism there.
There's racism there. You know, if it's in America, there's racism. And there's old images of firefighters like using their
Oh,
hoses
yeah.
on black folk.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, if there's anything, like there's a boy, maybe Basquiat, maybe not, as a child.
Yeah, there's a link there.
You know
Because
what I mean?
also, like that, it sounds like, oh, they just get sprayed with water. When they did that, it was with like very, like the water had like a lot of
Extremely intense.
pressure. And
Yeah.
so like it hurts and you would like get knocked back and could like break bones and I guess
Mhm.
probably die. Because if you hit your head,
Yeah.
you're kind of out sometimes.
And I think they might have like set up fire hydrants as well. And
Yeah, because
it's an
then,
extremely powerful stream of water, and that would I would kind of see like maybe it's like water dripping too, like the way, I mean, a lot of his paintings do it, but this one especially, there's like a lot of just paint kind of streaking.
I honestly still think it looks like, not to be morbid, but I think it looks like he's burning alive, like with his hair being
Oh.
red, because like that your hair is gonna catch on fire first, and like just all the red and the yellow and the orange and the warm colors, like I feel like it transcends the Johnny Pump into something a lot more destructive. Um,
Oh.
and also just the fact that his skeleton is like out there. I know that is
Mhm.
like a common Basquiat style, but like he's
That
really
is
talking about like child mortality or something like that. I
right.
don't know.
And blue is kind of like the color of water, and there's only just a little bit of it.
Mhm.
Um,
And I think with that sort of interpretation, his left hand kind of looks like there's smoke coming off of the thumb. And then also all the way on the left of the canvas, there's like a piece of writing, and I think it's just N and then a bunch of E's. That could be like, like it could be sirens or something, or even like a fire alarm.
mm,
Like, and also it's in red and like those lines, and I feel like fire alarms and sirens like sound red.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
they connote red
There's a
connotes.
connotation of red.
Wow.
Yeah,
This
and
painting, when I first saw it, I was like, wow, cool. But now I'm like, holy shit, that's depressing.
My soul.
Like, it kind of hurts.
And like they're dripping, like these people are like melting in the heat, or not these people. There's only one. I don't
There's
know.
only one people. Yeah, that's
Wiggle
so true.
as like his intestines and like the rib
No.
cage and then the kneecap.
Yeah.
And the
Oh,
right foot is very deformed.
is
What
right
I
or
ate.
right?
Oh, we got 10 minutes. So let's move on to the next one.
Okay.
This button is the right button. Come on. There we go.
Yeah. Oh, it's hard to.
Oh, we
Okay.
could try and pull up another one.
Moving. Okay. It's kind of hard to see, but this is my painting. It's called Victor, and it was painted in 1987, like right after what's his face, Warhol passed away. And this is when Basquiat really started like going through a rough patch. And I just thought it was very powerful because it like says the word ideal a lot, and there's this man, presumably I would say Basquiat is like getting injured by the words, and I think this piece has a lot to say about like his self-esteem at the time and like how he was taking criticism from the art world, because this was when he was getting really big, or he was also always pretty big, but this is when the art world started really critiquing his art, and he had a lot of pressure on him to create like masterpieces. And I think this piece was shown in one of his last art shows before he died.
And he was feeling particularly hurt by what uh, the art world was saying about his collaboration with Warhol too.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this relates back to what we were saying about how like when you title something, it sort of it causes the viewer to see it differently. when I first just like looked at this, my first thought was of Frankenstein, just because the name Victor makes me think of Victor Frankenstein. And then in the actual image, you have like the word of ideal, and like sort of in Frankenstein, like the whole thing that he's trying to do is to create life. But then through doing that, he takes like pieces of like the most, like he's trying to make almost like the ideal man. Like he takes all, like he makes sure to make him beautiful. Like he takes all of these beautiful pieces of corpse. So, but also like it's sort of like creating the ideal person. And I think that I don't know, that's the first thing that I thought of is like, oh, he feels this pressure to be the ideal person, and is sort of like in this, it's almost, it looks like he's like injured or dead or dying or something. And like the top left, like the yellow, makes me think of of lightning, which I don't think is from the original Frankenstein. That's just sort of like that just came up a little bit. It's just electricity. Still kind of yellow in my brain. But I don't know. It makes me think of that.
Yeah, when I read the title at first, it made me think of something different actually. I thought of like victory.
Yeah.
Because it makes me think that maybe this person depicted in the painting was like a winner. He's the top of the art world. He's #1 artist, just like Basquiat always wanted to be. But can he deal with all of like the societal pressures of being the victor of the art world, or is it just going to end up tearing him down?
It's like saying there's no real winning in life. Like I thought I interpreted the title as irony, like kind of what you were saying, and like these ideals are like pushing him down, and like the way the lines are framed in the photo, they move towards the guy, and I think I can't take my eyes off the band-aid on his cheek, and I feel like everything in the piece just moves towards that band-aid, and like it's like the ideals of other people are injuring him, and like he may be like perceived as a victor because he has a lot of money, but like he's suffering too.
Yeah.
And like sorry.
It's almost as if like by outliving Warhol, he like won, as in like, oh, now he is the top dog of the art world, and like that's not something he didn't want that position. Like he didn't want to get there through what happened, but like it still happened, so now he is the winner, even if it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
I want to point out in right under the letter D and E on the very left ideal, there's a circle with a blue line in it, and under it says nothing to be gained here, and then 2 figures to the right it says money orders, and I feel like, I don't know, it seems I hate capitalism ish, like I don't
he's
know,
creating the commodification of his artwork.
right? And I thought of the first thing I thought of when I read Victor was the Hunger Games. Like I think the people who like don't die are called like victors, and I just feel like that's an interesting perspective.
Also,
I mean,
isn't
Hunger Games come out long after, but
yeah, he wasn't inspired by the Hunger Games.
it was not inspired by the Hunger Games.
Also, isn't money order just the word that you use, or also isn't that also the word that you use like when you mail money and stuff and checks and such? Am I making that up? I'm pretty sure that's the word for that.
Carter, what do the other words say, if you're able to read them?
I see. Oh no. So to the left of nothing to be gained here is a beating awaits you here. Let's see. 2 figures under the money orders, that circle with the cross in it says fatal injury. He's clearly very sad, obviously, with Warhol passing, and they had a falling out and he didn't get to resolve it.
Yeah, this piece really speaks about his relationship, and this is just him going through the grieving process for his very dear friend.
This also reminds me of how there was like a running joke with one of his friends about how they were going to have like a boxing match. This kind of reminds me of that. What would like, you know, like you have like the swollen cheek from getting punched, and also like the red thing above his head kind of looks like it could be like a boxing glove.
It says Neptune underneath the trident.
Also, it says, you could say it says ideal 3 times, but I feel like it says like the focus on each word is deal for the first one, ideal for the second one, and idea for the third one. And it's kind of like the idea is floating away and like separated from the rest of it.
It also could be interpreted as just being like ideal, as in like dealing with Warhol's death and life sucking.
Like,
welcome back.
We were cut off because we ran out of time, but this has been this week's episode on Penance Envy. We talked about Jean-Michel Basquiat. Any final thoughts?
It was pretty sad, his life. It's sad to think about for me. Just because, like, I mean, obviously it's sad whenever anyone dies young, but for him especially, because, like, he was, like, at the peak of his career, and that's not what matters in life, but I think that, like, obviously that's a good thing, is being really successful, and also, especially when you're doing something that you enjoy, which he did. Like, yes, he was in a rough spot at the end there, but I think that, like, it did seem like he was sort of getting through it, which makes it even sadder that he died, like, immediately afterward. I don't know, just kind of depressing.
I feel like I don't want to consider it to be sad because, like, he made all this cool art and, like, he was such, like, an amazing, vibrant person, and, like, yeah, he died young. He had his struggles, but he also just, like, lived his life, like, to the fullest, and, like, his full, like, I feel like there's such, like, a deep connection between humans and, like, creativity and expression, and he was really, like, the pinnacle of that, and I think that deserves to be, like, acknowledged without, like, a tone of sadness, just with, like, a tone of appreciation. And I guess
but I think the way he died, though, is just like, I feel like he didn't really have any real support. Like, he had Andy, but then he died. You know, he didn't really feel like he had anyone to lean on. And, you know, we're social beings. We love to be around other people. And he got more and more paranoid, like, whether that be because of the drugs or because of, you know, XYZ. But it's just like, I don't know. He felt alone. And then...
Yeah. I definitely see where you're coming from, Ursula. But, like, I think that you can acknowledge all the great things, and also it still is sad. I don't know, for me at least.
I just found it really tragic that, like, most of his career he tried to separate himself as much as he possibly could from capitalism, but in the end, capitalism is sort of what killed him, because he was stressing himself out so much with trying to become like the greatest artist of his generation and like sell as many paintings as possibly could, and it was what drove him into that state of mind, which eventually was what killed him.
That was sad. There was a point.
Eat the rich, and the rich ate him back.
No. There was a point in the film where I was like, they said he started to get stressed out because he wasn't just painting for fun. Like, he had commitments that he had to fill. You know, he had to meet quotas because he had people waiting on his work.
How do you be an artist and just say, like, fuck that and make art and live a healthy, like, happy lifestyle?
I don't know, because the dream is, you know, to get someone
income,
right, to get someone to manage you so you can sell stuff, but then you have to start making for...
there's like no winning.
What a glum episode of...
No, it's kind of depressing.
We're all sad. Like, we're all like,
because we're all having an identity crisis right now. Or at least I am. I don't know.
Well, I think maybe we should just all create art and see where that takes us.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the message of this week's episode of Pen is Envy is that you need to create art and fuck capitalism.
I made this punch needle thing for my mom.
Nice.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
See you guys
See you next week
on
on
Pen
Pen
is
is
Envy.
And it's envy. I'm not good at it.